We are here with Coach Lou Corsetti. Coach Corsetti is a member of the Georgia Lacrosse Hall of Fame class of 2011. This marks Coach Corsetti's 52nd year as a player coach. Coach Corsetti has had many roles as a local and national lacrosse ambassador. Lou has had the pleasure of coaching 52 All American players, 22 academic All Americans, over 250 All State players between New York and Georgia, and several All Star teams, including the first lacrosse team to participate in the Georgia Games in 1993. Lou's been part of U.S. lacrosse since uh, it was established as the national governing body of the sport of lacrosse. Lou has held many positions with USA Lacrosse. He is the past president of the Georgia chapter, as well as has been on the National Council Youth Council since 2003. Lou has been a convention speaker 20 times at the USA Lacrosse National Convention and a convention committee member for 6 years. Lou was elected Georgia's Man of the Year in 2003, and in June of 2005, Lou was selected to the U.S. Lacrosse Executive Committee, the first person from Georgia given such an honor. Lou was also the 2004 U.S. Lacrosse Most Innovative Coach. He was also selected to coach the 2013 U.S. Lacrosse Champion All-American Showcase. Thanks for joining us today, Coach Lou.
Thanks, Peter, Glenn. Appreciate it. And thank you guys for having me.
Well, thanks, Coach. So tell us, how did you get started with lacrosse when you were a kid?
It's kind of twofold. I was a baseball catcher and was pretty good, but not very big. And I tell the story about Coach Dedronsky, and I sometimes use it in speeches in front of parents, and I'll say, does anybody know who Ed Stedronsky is? And obviously nobody knows.
Yeah.
I said, well, if it wasn't for him cutting me from the junior high baseball team, I wouldn't be here today. Because, and ironically, my wife's cousin, who I played football with in high school and in college, he was the other catcher, but the guy was like 6'2" in middle school, and I was maybe 5'5" if I was lucky. But I loved catching because you were in the action, and so I got cut from the baseball team. My dad was a little league coach, and I was like, Dad, can you send me to lacrosse camp? And so he sent me to Stroudsburg lacrosse camp in Pennsylvania, and ironically, Eamon McEnany at the time, who was like the best player in the world, he was one of the camp counselors. And I was in a room full of the entire Baldwin High School lacrosse team from Long Island, me and a kid from Florida. And I was 13, I think, or just going to be 13. And, in a bunkhouse with these knuckleheads that were doing all sorts of shenanigans, and they were shooting bottle rockets at their goalie from across the bunkhouse. And the counselors came in, and they're like, everybody outside, and they made us run these hills. And one of the counselors was Eamon McEnany, and over time, I can get into my Eamon McEnany service because we both worked in the same industry, but we can get to that another point during your podcast. But that's how I got started lacrosse. We always had lacrosse in our neighborhood where I grew up, but our side of the neighborhood was mostly baseball, and the far distant side, which was called Fred Shores, where all the rich kids lived. They played lacrosse. And so that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah. Who were your mentors growing up in lacrosse?
Well, one guy was George Cruz, who was like the best guy on our high school team. He's about 5 or 6 years older than me. He went on to play at Kutztown, and West Babylon had a feeder to Kutztown. Like, if you were a good lacrosse player, you went there.
Gotcha.
And Jimmy Burden, who I kind of modeled my game after. He was an unbelievable attackman at my high school, really good hockey player. I played midfield in high school because I was fast, but when I went to college, they switched me to attack after the first practice because
not fast enough.
No, I was fast. It's just I had I took a shot that hit a pipe and went like 40 feet in the air, and the coach was like, "Move that guy to attack."
Gotcha.
And all my friends in high school, when they came back, they're like, "You're playing attack. You're a midfielder." And then Frank Urso, who was unbelievable player. We used to go watch him play when we were, seventh, eighth, ninth grade, because he played at his school not too far from where I grew up. And everybody talks about Jim Brown being the best lacrosse player ever. Frank
Yeah.
Urso was.
Yeah.
He was insane.
Gotcha.
I mean, for high school kids to go to a rival high school game and you're not even playing against them, that
Yeah.
says a lot. And he was a four-time All-American in Maryland. So,
Yeah. It's great.
Okay, so you're talking about your mentors and players you watched while you were in high school, but where did you play in high school and how was your experience?
I played at West Babylon High School on Long Island. And it was a great experience. We had a really good program there. Mr. Rowcroft was my high school coach. Unbelievable guy. Still kind of in contact with him, which is the blessings of Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Rowcroft he was a great coach. He ran a box program at the elementary school that he was the gym teacher at, and we would teach like little kids how to play. And you know, you do with what you have. And he had wooden goals with the corners cut out with burlap behind them, and we'd play indoor in the gym. And great experience. Had a really good high school team. And we won our conference championship, which is a pretty big deal to win a conference championship. They didn't have state champions back then, but
Right.
to win your league championship, Peter's from upstate New York. He knows if
Yeah.
you win your league, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they started, the state championships and things like that, and I'm sure, we probably would have been in the mix at some point, not saying
Yeah.
that we would have won, but yeah, it was a terrific experience.
Right. So recruiting today, we just got to September 1 yesterday, and all the different aspects of recruiting. How is your recruitment to college compared to today?
Well, believe it or not, I was more of a football player.
Okay.
I always wanted to play college football, and everywhere I got recruited to play football, they weren't going to let me play lacrosse, and everywhere I got recruited to play lacrosse wasn't going to let me play football. And at the time, I was 5'10", 170 pounds, and so there weren't a lot of people knocking on the door. But because I was fast, and football was my thing, even though I played lacrosse and wrestled. Um, I think Marist was the only place other than Frostburg State that were going to let me play both sports.
Gotcha.
And when you're 18 years old, you still have dreams. I thought I was going to go to the NFL.
Yep.
And
Same here. Same here.
yeah,
That was my dream. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so that's where, I was able to play both sports and have a good experience. Football, we could have been pretty good, but we got a lot of injuries over the years. And,
Yeah.
we had an inner joke. It was called Step 3 because our coach was like, guys, we won the second 2 years of playing football, we won our first 3 games and then got decimated by injuries. So it was always step 4, step 4. We never made it to step 4, but at least we were really good in lacrosse. So
Yeah.
at least
What
that.
how did you get recruited? What did you like, you know, obviously there were a lot of probably camps you could go to, but how did you, catch the eyes? Obviously you're saying for football was kind of your thing, but how did that all go about?
I think if you were pretty good, meaning like if you made all league or all county, you kind of got recognized by
Gotcha.
college coaches.
Right.
There was no real recruitment per se. I mean, I remember a good friend of mine that we went on a camping trip, and we went to all the schools that I thought I wanted to go to, and
Yeah.
he wanted to go to Johnson and Wales because he wanted to be a chef.
Yeah.
So we literally camped out along the way,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
ended up at Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island camping, just him and I. So that's how I went to my schools. My parents weren't involved in it. They didn't know much about college. I'm the youngest of five, and I was the only one from my family to go to college.
Right.
And so they weren't really involved in it other than that they came to my games.
Yeah.
And so, and I was the first recruited class at Marist for football. They were a club program in
Okay.
1978. So, uh, dramatically different than what it is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Dramatically different.
You hear that a lot about, parents not being involved with, you talk like I've read some stuff on Lou Holtz and some other people and how like the recruiting process, like parents weren't involved. It was you and that was it. And, are you coming? Are you not? Like, there's no money in it really. There's like, this is what's happening. And now it's almost the exact
Opposite.
opposite of that, where, parents are so involved. I know Glenn and I, through our daughter's processes would do what we could and try to coach them up and how to, hey, make sure because we don't want to be those parents, right? Like, you know, talking to coaches all the time, and which we never did and probably never would. But we kind of coached them up on how to do it, and it's just amazing how generational it just changes so quickly, and like parents just seeing it as a great opportunity, maybe even for them,
Mhm.
maybe to you know brag about themselves and around dinners or whatever. My daughter that my son that, and now it's like you guys, it was like where are you going? All right, well, good luck, here you go,
Well,
so
and I think the dynamic is there was no technology. Like
correct.
Right.
you went to the library, and that's where you got your information, and you read
Correct.
periodicals. And so if you got a letter from a college coach, that was a big deal,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that's what I tell kids today is that it's great that you sent your film in and the coach emailed me. I said, but if you write a handwritten letter to the coach,
Yeah.
his assistant may open it, but the coach is going to read it because
Yeah.
anytime you get something mailed to you, we all get mail all day long, right?
Yeah.
Hertz rental car thing or, a bill or whatever. But if you get a letter or a thank you note, you're going to open it. And that's why I tell kids all the time, make that extra effort of writing a thank you note saying, Coach, I really enjoyed my visit. And the other side of it is no's an answer. If you're not interested in that
Yeah.
school, because you guys know you just went through it with your daughters. If your daughter Peter got sent a note to the coach of Villanova because she wanted to play there and it's her dream
Yeah.
school, I guarantee you the first email she gets back, hey, we'd really like to see you at our prospect day.
Right.
And you know this, Peter, as a college coach,
Yeah.
camps were the cat's pajamas back in the day. Everybody
Right.
went to camp. But then clubs happen.
Hmm.
And so parents like, well, why am I spending all this money? And then I still got to send my kid to camp.
Yep.
And college coaches, how they supplemented either their income or their assistance income was that's how prospect days got invented.
Yep.
So they may never seen your daughter, they may have saw a little film of her, but the
Right.
first email she gets, oh, can you come to our prospect day in January or in November for $350?
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is now,
Yes, it
you know.
is. It is. We were talking about, we loved every aspect of it. We loved every part of it. We loved traveling together with everybody. It's very expensive. We wouldn't really change it. You don't really get back your investment in it at all. But, yes, it's very expensive. It's completely different. Even when I was going through the recruitment, I graduated in 1996, it was camps. It was, and for me, my parents said you either go to a football camp or a lacrosse camp. So I chose football camp. And so, I had some interest in some smaller D3 schools in New York and whatnot going, but I was like you, I was going to the NFL at, 5'10", 180 pounds. So, I was ready to go. So, yeah, it's very different. It's, you know, people get caught up in it. Like, I put a post on Facebook yesterday about just, it's everybody's experience is different. Just because you don't get contacted day one or an email or a phone call or a text, it's not the end of the road, and you're going to find your place. Glenn's daughter Lacey found her place like
Pretty quickly.
pretty
Yeah.
quickly. Like September 1 got the email.
Mhm.
Caitlin's took a little bit longer. So everybody's is different, and there's so much pressure today of posting and look at this and look at that, and I think we all kind of get caught up into it a little bit. But you gotta kind of stay as grounded as possible with it.
Well, and at the end of the day, when your daughters graduate from college, it's always now what?
Yeah,
You've won a couple of state championships, Peter. And so you win it and you feel great about it, but then, okay, now what?
yeah,
So it's always that push to, and I just tell people, enjoy the journey. You guys went through it just recently.
hmm
Those car rides and we're going all over God's creation are incredibly meaningful. Maybe not right at this
yeah,
moment, but 10, 15 years when you're talking to your daughters about it or your
yeah,
grandkids about it, that's going to mean a heck of a lot because it's memories. I
mhm.
mean, stories and relationships is what life's all about.
Yep, absolutely. Just gave me the chills, coach, because I loved every minute with her. And, it's expensive, so it was really just me and her going. And my wife and son, they would stay back. That he had his own stuff with lacrosse, and
Sure.
so like the two of us have spent so much time together. It's been incredible, and I never get that time back, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
Um, so so you said you played football and lacrosse at Marist. How did you balance playing two sports and schoolwork?
Uh, it was interesting. Of all my friends, I was a communications major. And they all laughed at me because it was so-called easy major because you did TV production and I was doing radio shows and photography classes and they were doing, business classes
Yeah,
and just getting crunched by it, because it's hard stuff, statistics, economics. And I
yeah,
took some of those for your core stuff that, accounting and things like that. And then, but I was doing TV production and radio production and DJ and all that stuff. So, yeah, and you had a lot of time in between. So I used that time to try. Plus, I was the lifeguard at our pool, and
nice.
every high school in the area in Poughkeepsie used our pool to train. So there was like, 100 and something kids in the water, plus their coaches. They weren't going to drown. They already knew how to
Yeah,
swim. So I just sat there and that's where I got all my reading in. I checked the chemicals every now and then I'd lock up shop. It was the best job in the world.
yeah,
And so that's where I got all my reading in and schoolwork that I had to do. And a lot of the stuff that I did was, lab work. You had to do a production of radio show or a TV
yeah.
production and whatnot. But ironically, when I got out in '82, there were like no jobs
Mm,
and I lucked out and got a job at Merrill Lynch in their
Okay.
communications department. It was all technology. So, and then I wound up running capital markets for Smith Barney here in town. And my friends today were like, "How did that happen? Like
Yeah,
you weren't even a business major."
yeah.
So go
That's
figure.
awesome. So obviously your job brought you here to Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay.
It working in New York and growing up there, which I wasn't a big fan of New York in general. Upstate New York I loved, but
Yeah.
Long Island, everything's crowded. Yeah, they have beaches and stuff like that, but I'm more of a mountain person.
Yeah.
And so I got the opportunity with Smith Barney to transfer to Atlanta. Mary Jo's parents live in Columbia, South Carolina, and
Right.
I saw my life in front of my face, taking a bus or a train every day into Manhattan, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I
Yeah.
mean, everything's a hassle. Crossing the street with 200 people, getting in an elevator with 40 people. It was insane. So I had the opportunity, and I would have never, because I coached the local high school up there. And when I got out of college, I coached at Farmingdale University with Fred AC, who then went off to Air Force. Uh, but if I didn't move to Atlanta, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now because I wouldn't have had the time to coach because I was getting home at 8 o'clock every night.
Right.
And working here at Smith Barney, you know, a lot of the kids that I coached, their parents worked with me.
Gotcha.
So
That's
as soon
awesome.
as the market closed at 4, I was off to Murphy Candler Park at Atlanta Youth
Yeah.
Lacrosse, and nobody bothered me because 1, I was the boss, and 2, I was coaching their kids.
Right.
So it all worked out.
Win-win.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
perfect marriage there.
Yeah, so that's what took us here in 1990, and it worked out great. It couldn't ask for more.
Awesome. So what did the lacrosse scene look like when you got to Atlanta?
Well, this is a funny story. When I got here, and I still have the bumper sticker here somewhere. Yeah, there it is.
That's awesome.
Play lacrosse, and I called the number, and it was Mike Buckus,
Okay.
who is a legend here
Yep.
in town. And I was in town 2 weeks, and I saw the bumper sticker. I called the number, and he's like, "Meet me at the Waffle House on wherever
Yeah.
in Marietta, and we got a game this Saturday." I think I called him on like a Monday. We got a game Saturday over in Birmingham, and I come home from work and I tell Mary Jo, she's like, you know, you're not even in town 2 weeks and you find a lacrosse game. And so I drove to Birmingham with him and his brother John, who played at Lehigh, and he was down visiting, and they snuck him into the game and played for the Atlanta Lacrosse Club for 2 years. And then Doug Horn and myself, Doug started the SCLC and was a big time official and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's start youth lacrosse. So we had 22 kids in 1992. Doug had a van and I had a van, and we would pile the kids in the van and drive all over the Southeast to get games. And we had 6th, 7th, 8th, and I think we had 1 ninth grader. And we played at Darlington and Macaulay and Montgomery Bell and down in Pensacola, anywhere we could get a game. And that's how it started. And then each year it got a little bit bigger. And then in 96, when those kids kind of graduated out of our program, that's how high school lacrosse got started. So Lovett, Westminster, North Springs, Roswell, and Woodward started high school teams. And then each year that got a little bit bigger. And 2003, we got sanctioned. I think we had 31 boys teams and 32 girls teams, and it just kept exploding each year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned Atlanta Youth Lacrosse. So you and Doug kind of put that together. What's that experience like? How did that go?
It went great. I mean, to this day, it's probably the best experiences because it was so new. Nobody knew anything about it. The parents were awesome because they didn't know the game. We decimated the Murphy Candler baseball program because our field was right next to all the baseball fields, and our kids are running all around having fun, and the kids out in the outfield are like looking over like, what's that? And we wound up getting a bunch of dads that were baseball coaches, because you guys know this, all the rec programs, you know, the shortstop or the catcher, the pitcher, their dad is the coach. And if it's a basketball team, the dad's the coach and the point guard's the best player, the middle linebacker on the football, you know the deal.
Yeah.
And so they wound up coming over and becoming coaches with us. And we had like Scott Ratliff's dad, Randy, was one of our coaches. Dave Cranshaw, whose son Matty was a really good player. Obviously, Mike Buckus came into the fray when his kids were old enough to play, and Mike and I ran it for many years together. So it just kept growing, and we played on what I called the Buffalo field because it literally looked like Buffalo ran down the middle of the football field. It was just grass on the sides, but the kids loved it because anytime it rained, and Mike and I worked together at SunTrust, Robinson Humphrey, or Smith Barney, Robinson Humphrey. And, I'd wake up really early and like push the puddles off the field. And then with like one of those lights on your head,
Yeah.
and line the fields. And I come, I'd be at work at the trading desk, and Mike's like, where were you? And I'm like, I was lining the field. He's
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, these kids need to have a great experience because we have
Yeah.
games tonight,
Yeah.
And so I just loved it. It was great. The field wasn't the best, but the kids didn't know any better. As a matter of fact, if you guys know, Connor Kelly, his dad, Chris, coached with us, and Connor never played on grass before. And we had a fall thing over Life College, and their grass was like that thick.
Mhm.
And he's looking at it. He was like, I don't know, 11 years old, and he's looking at his dad. He's like, Dad, what's this? And he's like, it's grass, because he never played on grass before.
That's
So
awesome.
and so yeah, Atlanta Youth Lacrosse became, I guess you would say, the coaching tree of youth leagues, because we helped Decatur get started, where Don Rigger is.
Mhm.
East Cobb, Terry Main started the last of the program way back when in the
Yep.
day, and Mike Ryan, guys like that. We all did these clinics. I helped the Milton program with Mike and Brian Beach, if you remember Brian, Peter.
Oh yeah.
The Milton program got cranked up, and then we helped Gwinnett get started. So it just, you just did what you did,
Yeah.
And when Peter was at Piedmont College, he would come down to do clinics for our kids. We would bring in like a visiting college coach, so Barry and um, uh, Piedmont, and I think Mercer when they finally got started. So we were just trying to elevate the game here, and that's kind of, you know Atlanta Youth Lacrosse happened to be the first one, but it could have been anybody that
Yeah.
that it happened with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just you randomly saw a bumper sticker, and that's how it all started.
That's awesome.
That's
yeah,
pretty funny.
That's cool.
So what high schools have you coached here in Atlanta?
well, I helped Mike at Holy Innocents when he started the program there, because his oldest son Michael went to Westminster, and then Patrick and Sean were at Holy Innocents. So obviously they graduated at Atlanta Youth Lacrosse. Patrick did, so we started a Holy Innocents program. So I was there, and then I started a program where my son went. Mount Pisgah didn't have a team, and Riverwood, where Peter
Mhm.
coached, didn't have a team in 2002, I think it was, or 2003. So
Mhm.
we combined the Riverwood kids and the Mount Pisgah kids, and
Mhm.
we played in a thing called the North Georgia Lacrosse Club, which was for teams that didn't have a sanctioned team yet. And Riverwood was the Raiders, and Mount Pisgah was the Patriots. So we called ourselves the Ratriots, and and it was great. Kids had a bang up time. They were pretty much all ninth graders playing against
Mhm.
Tyler Yelkin, who coaches at at
Reinhardt. Yeah.
Reinhardt now, was at Kennesaw. He looked as big as he does now
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
was in high school. The kid was a beast.
Yeah.
And he played for the Woodstock Club program, and Kenny Byers
Yeah.
coached the Etowah team before they became, um, a sanctioned team. So yeah, the club circuit, and then that thing turned into um, basically a freshman team for the bigger programs. The Lamberts of the world used it as their freshman team because they have so many kids playing, and that's just kind of the way it morphed into. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was. An interesting experience. So then after that, I went to Pace because my son transferred into Pace, and coached at Pace for several years, and then went to Riverwood, um, and um, and then I went to Marist after that, and been at Fellowship Christian ever since.
Yeah. And I'll say you've improved those programs tremendously, and it was great to see the number of players that have gone on to play in college from those programs. You've done a great job mentoring those kids. I know it's not your goal to say, "Oh, I want to get these kids to go play in college." I think it's being around you and your influence, and obviously your love of the game and wanting these kids to have a great experience has afforded these kids, those opportunities. Obviously, your connections with other coaches and other programs has been a great thing to see. So, I mean, I think, a lot of kids owe a lot to you. I know you wouldn't like want that, everybody just, oh, thank Coach Lou, Coach. It happens organically, and you've done a good job, and it's been a great thing for the game of lacrosse to see the programs, you know, you've started, I basically, unfortunately, kind of, I guess, blew up the Mount Pisgah Riverwood program because they wanted to start a program at Riverwood, and I
Yeah.
took that job for my first job. And but you've taken those programs, and those programs have been able to sustain, and you can see how they've come from where they were to being programs that have continued to have success. So that's pretty awesome, and I think a lot of people should be grateful for that.
Well, and two neat things about that, Peter. Uh, we lost to Wesleyan this year in the playoffs for the last 2 years, but they went on to win the state championship
Yep.
this year. But the neat thing about it, from my perspective, is Connor Breslin and Davis Brown both played for me and coached for me,
Yeah.
and they won the state championship. So if you're going to lose to somebody, might
Yep.
as well lose to somebody that you like. And just neat
Absolutely.
to see those guys on the sideline. And then Peter, when he was at Riverwood, we had these two chucklehead brothers. I won't mention their names on the podcast. He would call me I don't know, it seemed like every other week. He's like, Lou, these guys, and he told me the story that he kicked one of them out of practice because they got it into it or mouthed it off, whatever. And he's like, get out. And the other kid starts walking off the field, and he's like, what are you doing? And he was the goalie. And he's like, well, he's my ride home coach because he didn't, it was his brother. And so Pete and I would laugh about those kind of things because
Yeah.
these kids, they were good players. Unfortunately, they were angry a lot. So
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of kind
I
of
think
funny.
that the whole thing was like them fighting with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was,
constantly,
yes, always.
constantly.
um, so we haven't really talked about club lacrosse yet, but you started the Atlanta Coyotes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it actually started, believe it or not, when I talk to people all around the country, because I have these conversations all the time with club versus park and rec or community-based programs. And I kind of feel bad because I started the first club program here, which was Team Georgia.
Right.
And back then, that was the only game in town for kids to get exposure. And we would take them to Champ Camp. And,
Mhm.
that was like the cat's pajamas, unless you got picked for 205, or I can't remember the other thing. Maybe it was Peak 100 something or whatever.
Yeah.
Camp Camp 205 turned into Camp 705
Yeah.
because they saw the money
Yeah.
opportunity.
Well, I
And
recruited there a lot, and it ended up being like Camp 1,000 and
yeah,
500. So yeah,
exactly,
yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the guys they ran it are great guys, but they
Absolutely.
they 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 saw, whoa, we can make some more
Yep.
money here.
Yep.
Anyhow, so Team Georgia was just to get kids exposure because nobody was coming down here. There was no college teams here or anything like that. And as Peter said earlier, there's a place for everyone. So some kids went off and had great college careers from those original teams. And then it turned into the Heroes, and the
Mhm.
Coyotes started because, again, 4:30 in the morning, lining the fields, and I was trying to figure out what are we going to call the younger kids. And I see this rabbit run by, and then this thing that I thought was a dog comes flying by, and it was near this tree line at Windsor Parkway. And I'm like, oh, what the heck was that? And then I see it, and it was a coyote. I didn't even know there were coyotes in Atlanta. And so I came home. I'm like, we're going to be the Coyotes. And my daughter was like a graphic kind of expert. So she made a logo and all that stuff. And that's how the Coyotes got started. Ironically enough, that evening at practice, a Red Hawk landed on top of the goal. And I was like, maybe we should be the Red Hawks. But the Coyotes was there. And so that's how the Coyotes got started. And it just helped kids play and get opportunities. I went kicking and screaming when the parents were like, you need to start a U11 team because their siblings were on the U13 team. And there was all these little kids down there. And I just thought it was way too early to start them in that competitive craziness of what you guys now know of club lacrosse, where there's 70 teams at the field and you drugged in that cart through the parking lot and the coolers and the tents and who's bringing this and who's bringing that. And it was cool experience. Mary Jo, my wife, did a lot of the organizational stuff things. So we had the little peewee kids, like the 6 and 7 year olds. They were the pups, and she got these pup tents, and they put the pup tents out by the big tents, and so it was a bang up time. I think everybody enjoys being under the tent and getting something to eat and yucking it up with the parents, and and again, technology, as you guys may or may not remember, now with Tourney Machine, I guess that's a plug for them on your podcast, but the old days is they had a board that was where the command center was at the tournament, and the parents would be like, oh, if this happens and we're going to play this team, and parents would come up to me like, coach, you guys are playing this team next, number 15, and I'm like, I don't care, go play. I don't care. I don't need a scouting report from you. Well, if this happens and we score 3 and they lose by 4, I'm like, what do you, is your kid having fun? And are they developing? So, the club circuit, I think it's probably a natural maturation to the sport, but there is some zaniness to it, and then you get to, I would go just to games, our teams would be playing like later on, and I'd just be sitting under a tree at like JJ Bello Park there, Pete, underneath the tree, just watching like a ULO game. No dog in the hunt. And a bunch of parents would come up to me and they'd start complaining because they are now on the new club team because they left ours. And they just start, and I'm like, why are you telling me this? Like, you left. I can't, I'm not going to say anything bad about a program I know nothing about.
Right.
I know the guys there, they're good guys, well, they don't communicate. Well, how is that my fault? You go talk to them, so that's, there's pluses and minuses, but I think overall the club, environment is good for the kids that are the gym rats that want to do extra and play,
Absolutely.
So what's the most rewarding aspect of coaching kids or at high school level?
At the high school level, I would say, since I turned over to 2 guys that went to Peters High School, the Lux brothers, uh, I turned over my youth program to them 4 months before COVID. And obviously we know what happened with all that noise.
Yeah.
And so now I just coach high school, and I've always enjoyed coaching high school. I loved running the youth program. It was a blast. I meet with a lot of these guys. They're now adults now, and we go to lunch or breakfast or whatnot. And those fun times underneath the tent with these kids and teaching them how to be refs and all those kind of things were really fun. But I guess at the high school level is the personal relationships that you build with these kids and finding out what's going on in their life. Some of them are never going to go on and play anymore. Like high school is it for them, but just the fun relationships that you have with them. And, you develop stronger relationships with their parents and, knowing, because Peter, I'm sure, has heard this a zillion times. How's your team going to be?
Yeah.
And I have the same standard answer. I said, I'll tell you in 10 years because I want to see what kind of husbands they're going to be. I coach boys lacrosse, and what kind of fathers they're going to be. And are they going to be solid citizens? Because at the end of the day, our playing career is going to stop. When I do training sessions as a USA lacrosse trainer, I tell people, look, when I played, I was a who's who. When I stopped playing, I was a who's he. And now that I coach, I'm a who cares.
Yeah.
And so you got to be humble about things. But I would say the most rewarding portion, Glenn, is the personal relationships that you build with these kids, and it's hard when there's 200 to 600 kids in your youth program to have that versus high school where you only have 40 kids or so.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, obviously, currently you serve as a regional rep, right, for U.S. Lacrosse, and you do
hmm
Southeast and the Southwest. What challenges does lacrosse face? What challenges does lacrosse face going forward here?
I would say one of the challenges is people still haven't bought into the small sided concept of the
Yeah.
game. And I will tell you, before I took this position, which is 8 years ago, this August 1st, TJ Buchanan at USA Lacrosse, who's now at World Lacrosse now, TJ started this athlete development model, which
Mhm.
he put the science behind it. I started small sided games way before it was even a thing
Yeah.
because I saw soccer doing it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why do we have these little kids running the entire field? And if your team stinks, you never see the ball.
Yes.
And we've all been
One of
on
my
that side of
biggest
the equation.
complaints. Yeah, one of my
Okay.
biggest complaints.
Yeah. So TJ came to me and several other people around the country and he gave us his like white paper. What do you think? And, he asked us to like critique it and whatnot. And when I was interviewing for the position, I went out to lunch with him and he said, Lou, is this going to work? I said, TJ, let me explain something to you. At the time, there was like 20 something programs in Atlanta, high school programs. At that time, Westminster and Lovett won every like championship. And I think Peter snuck one in there
Yeah.
like 2 years later.
Yeah.
But all the kids that came out of Atlanta Youth Lacrosse started with 5-on-5, 6-on-6, small sided, a lot of touches on the ball. And wasn't that like those kids were any better athletes because they weren't. They just could handle the ball better.
Right.
The Neil Hickses of the world,
Yeah.
and guys like that. So I told TJ, I said, look, I know it works. You put the science behind it and put it in a nice marketing, bow around it. But I know this works because the success that these kids have had with better stick skills than because it's the hardest sport to play when you really, really break it down.
Right.
Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, they're all incredibly hard to play, but lacrosse takes so much skill. And if you can't catch and throw, the game isn't any fun.
Right. Right.
Now Peter will get a guy this year, I guarantee you, is a good athlete and is going to come out his senior year because his buddies told him, he's a good football player.
Yep.
That kid's going to be a D mini because you
Yep.
can't rely on him to catch and throw. He's not going to develop a stick in 4 months,
Right.
you know, but he's going to be a valuable member of the team because he's great at playing defense. So
Yeah.
to me, I think that you get too many people that believe that 8, 9-year-olds should be playing full field lacrosse.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that holds everybody back. And, we have some different disciplines, the sixes discipline, obviously,
Yeah.
small sided games, 7-on-7 tournaments, the more you could do with that will help, but you still have that old guard, which
Yeah.
I think is holding the game back.
And I think it's parents too. They want to see their kids playing the game. And we're trying to rebuild our youth program at River Ridge, and so we have I don't 15 total between like elementary school and middle school, but we're trying to do fundamentals in the fall because if we throw those kids out there in a game in some manner, they're going to get destroyed because they don't know how to pass and catch, and then in 2 years they're going to quit because it's no fun anymore.
Right.
So I'm behind that. The small games, we do it in practice a lot. The kids like it, they enjoy it, it's fun. It exposes some kids a little bit, which then you look at them and say, see, if you improve your skills just in this aspect, imagine how much better you're going to be in the full field. And I think it should be U11 should be 77 short field as well. And just knowing
Hmm.
from watching my son play,
Sure.
I'm like, by the time he runs from midfield down to, he's an attackman, but from midfield down to goal line extended, at 11 years old or 10, he's exhausted.
Tired.
So like, why are we trying to make these kids play on a field that,
It's for
pros and adults and, college kids, when that thing, it turns into like field hockey at that time and trying to pick up ground balls and things like that. So yeah, I wish more people would understand. And, it's kind of like recruiting. It's like you talk about multiple sports and, Glenn and I played multiple sports growing up, and, all the coaches are saying it, but it's like nobody's really listening to it. Uh, so it's just like parents need to take a step back a little bit. And your 11-year-old is, while he might emulate, you know, a pro player or a college player, not there yet. And as he gets older or she gets older, they're going to get to that point. But just step back and let them have some fun with it a little bit and not make it so competitive because, Bobby up the street made, Georgia select all-star baseball team, and now you got to compete with everybody else on what they're posting on social media. So
Yep.
I
And
love
that,
it.
and that, and that's the thing too, is we have a thing called Flex Six Lacrosse at USA Lacrosse, which is
Mhm.
just six in the softball.
Yeah.
So it lifts the barrier to entry for a parent of a 6 or 7 year old that somebody tells them, oh, you got to buy $300 worth of
Yeah.
gear.
Right.
So I've been counseling all the youth programs out there, start a Flex Six program. So if you only have 20 kids, girls and boys, it could be
Right.
co-ed, they can play Flex Six game. So you teach them a skill for 10 minutes, play a 40-minute Flex Six game. The parents are excited because they
Yeah.
don't have to go to wherever down
Yeah.
to
Peachtree
Peachtree
City.
City
Yeah.
to play, just have an internal league. And then they see the older kids playing, the 10, 11-year-olds playing. They're like, oh, that's what I'm eventually going to play. And
Right.
that's been changing, and a lot of more people are picking up the Flex Six, model of
Mhm.
getting kids to play, at an early age level because, T-ball and soccer, there's no real barrier to entry there.
Right.
And football, because you go, you know, your parents sign a waiver, they send you down to the shed, some dude gives you a helmet and
Yeah.
shoulder pads, and you're ready to go. Our sport, unfortunately, is not structured that way. Where some programs have rental programs or they have gear, but most of them don't.
Right.
And so, I had this thing called the Incredibles, which was little peewees.
Yeah.
It was a laugh riot
Yeah.
because I had all the high school and middle school kids helping me every weekend. And, we had between 20 and 30 of them. But if I knew now, I would have never put those kids in gear. I would have just let them have sticks
Right. Yeah.
and a softball,
Yeah.
and away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to the small sided portion of the conversation, like I know USA Hockey made a big push with that
Yeah.
probably a dozen years ago or so, where for like U8s and U9s, they don't even touch a full rink until
Mhm.
they're a
Well,
little
and
bit
Glenn, I'm
older.
sure you've seen this. They take a bunch of adults and they put them on an ice
Yeah.
that is 3 times the size of a normal ice rink.
Hmm.
Adults, and they're like, holy cow. So think of a 7-year-old going out and having to play full field lacrosse,
Oh yeah.
because a 16-year-old kid can get from one end of the field to the other in about 18 strides.
Right.
A 7-year-old, it takes like 73 strides. So just that to me
Yeah.
just makes more sense.
Right, exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. Like that's one of the aspect again using, the cross sport reference. But yeah, like with hockey, I coach high school, so I don't coach with the little kids, but I know that's been a big focus of USA Hockey the last several years is to
Hmm.
to and we were on a trip. We
Yeah.
were
I
up,
was going
we
to say,
we were
like UConn.
we were at UConn, and we weren't spectators weren't allowed in the lacrosse facility to watch, so we wandered over to the hockey rink on campus, and we were watching some youth hockey games, and they were playing, small sided games, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was it was like, it reminded me of my youth playing pond hockey, so it was
Yeah.
like that's great.
Yep.
But okay, so Tell us a little bit about Gordon and the Gordon Corsetti Mental Agility Foundation.
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, you guys both know, Gordon left us on December 2nd. And after a 20-year battle with anxiety and severe depression, if you've read any of Gordon's posts, as a matter of fact, when I'm done here, I'm going to be making a post because I've kept his blog site up. And he did incredible work for people's mental health. And over the years, of his struggles, as we went through with our family, just like anybody else, if somebody in your family gets cancer, you wind up learning more about cancer than you ever want to know. Same thing with depression. I knew nothing really about it other than hearing somebody was depressed. But the way I grew up, and I think a lot of it has to do with um, you were always outside burning off steam, and a lot of kids have these issues. Gordon had severe depression. Now, let's take that off the table for a second. But I probably would have been classified as ADD or ADDH or whatever you call these things, because I was always into something. But because you were outside all day playing pond hockey and football and basketball and street hockey and all these things that you did, then you came home, you ate, and you did your homework, and you were back outside again, or you went to bed. And there was only 3 television channels back then.
Yeah.
Now all this stuff, I call them dumb phones.
Yeah.
These things. I mean, we use them all day long, but it's created so many issues for young women and young men that and so Gordon, he used a lot of these things to write about. He delved very, very deeply every time he wrote something. He wasn't a trained psychiatrist or anything like that, but he didn't just write something. He literally researched the heck out of stuff before he posted something. And so over time, he's helped literally thousands of people. I mean, I get probably 1 or 2 a week from somebody that either they're trying to honor Gordon by putting helmet stickers on their kids' helmets and they never even met him, to, a ref in Hong Kong that he trained online. So he's still making a tremendous impact with his teachings, I guess you could say. And I'm just trying to keep it alive. We have his foundation that we raise money for mental health. My daughter Caitlin, a local coffee shop where she lives in Dunwoody, um, they help raise money from their coffee sales for the foundation, and all these little kids, saw the sign and whatnot, and they wanted to give their money, so it was kind of cool. They raised like $1,500 without really anybody asking, other than that my daughter goes in there and has coffee every now and then, and she got to know the owner, and they talked about it. And this woman unfortunately lost her uh, sister to suicide. So it's been a slog. I won't temper that too much, but I just feel like Gordon's with us still, and the foundation keeps him alive. We have a tournament. Last year was our first year that we did it. We'll have one, every year. To It's called Care of Your Crew, because that was Gordon's shtick. He was always talking about taking care of your crew, and whether it was your officials crew, he became an electrical lineman from it. So that's another crew that he was on, and just us three here now, that's our crew. How do we take care of each other? If Glenn calls me 2 weeks from now and is like, Lou, I need to get Mike Buckus on this podcast. Can you help me do that? That's what you do. You take care of each other. Peter's always taken care of me. I believe I've always tried to take care of Peter. We've played against each other, as coaches, and he's helped me with, when he was at Piedmont doing clinics for us. And so that's what you do. And so we're just trying to keep that going. But, Gordon was a terrific individual. I don't like talking about him in past tense, because I still believe he's here, and physically he's not, but I talk to him multiple times a day, and we just try to keep it going as best as we can to help people. And one of the dynamic things that have come through this, Redmond, whose son Casey plays for Peter, Gordon and him were good friends, and he's a journalist, and he asked me to speak at his journalism class for the University of Missouri, which is probably the top journalism program in the country, and they wanted to know how to write about suicide. And if there's anything you guys can take of this, we wanted to tell people Gordon died by suicide. He didn't commit suicide.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, I said, look, he did everything humanly possible, from ketamine treatment to electroshock therapy, you name it. He tried everything humanly possible, just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so he left us. But, when I talked to Jeremy's journalism class, I said, look, I find what my son did was courageous. It sounds weird to tell you that because we physically want him to be here and be able to hug him and whatnot and tell each other that we love each other. But, what he did for everybody else and leaving this world, I found that he was courageous in the end because he just couldn't fight the good battle anymore. And it's almost like he jumped on a hand grenade, that somebody would do in wartime. So to me, that's kind of, we want to keep his legacy alive. And I know there's other groups out there that Peter mentioned earlier, the young man that was killed. We're all trying to do these things to help others. And, again, back to making sure your kids are solid citizens. There's more to this than, everybody, it's called life.
Yeah.
And, we all choose to live, and some of us live longer than others.
Yeah. I coached against Gordon when I was at Lassiter and he was at Pace. Then, when he became an official, reffed many of my games. Obviously as coaches and referees don't always see eye to eye with each other, but I'll tell you this, he was very fair in his officiating. And, even to the most recent, we had an issue at a game when I was at Woodstock and he called me to ask about it because it had to do with somebody that was also an official. And, just, the way that he goes about things and did things was just, obviously a reflection of you and Mary Jo. And, it's great because I was going to ask you about, how do you help and what do we do? And you kind of already said that about, talking about it and kind of sharing Gordon's story and how Gordon still is helping people today. And, there's no better, I guess, reward, I guess, as a parent to understand the impact that he's had and continues to have. And, as hard as it is for you guys and, a lot of people that knew Gordon and, were friends with him or acquaintances with him or whatever, just it's awesome to hear the impact that he still has. And that's, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, I would say that how to help is, point people to Gordon's website.
Yeah,
Obviously, there's other things out there for
sure.
people to look at, certainly, and suicide hotline. And, if you guys are around young people yourselves as well, and anytime you can advocate, it's okay not to be okay.
Yep,
Because,
all the time.
again, I didn't grow up depressed myself. I don't suffer from depression,
Right,
but I know what it's like for somebody to have it.
right.
And it's debilitating. And people just need to either ask for help or ask the person. So if I saw Peter and I know how he normally is, but I see him and he's by himself and, you know, hey, how can I help?
Yep.
Just by those simple words, or telling kids, if you see somebody in the lunchroom by themselves,
Yeah.
you know, maybe go over them and say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And saying, look at that freak over there, by
Yeah.
himself. Those are the kind of things that if you have empathy and grace, will go a long way. We all as guys, we bust shoes all the time, giving
Yeah.
each other the business, when with your buddies from high school or college.
Yeah.
But that's fun banter. But
Right.
there's serious things out there, and it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So moving forward, um, we would love to help out any way we can. So, anytime you have a tournament or information you want to share, just please forward it to us and we'll post it on all our outlets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what I would love, Glenn, if you guys can, March 14th and 15th, I think it is, or the 15th and 16th. The Gordon's tournament at Fellowship Christian is have you guys come out and either do live podcasts
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
or just be part of the event so people know about the Georgia lacrosse report.
Yeah.
Because
That's awesome.
I'm sure a lot of people know about it, but the more exposure to the sport, and then you guys could be there and do your thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us what's next for Lou Corsetti.
uh, that's a good one. I would say, Mary Jo makes fun of me all the time because I tell her I'm going to be the Bobby Bowden of coaching, where they're going to pull me off the field at 85.
Yeah.
Um, that's I love coaching. I mean, it's the next best thing to playing. So to me, what's next is keep coaching. I mean,
Yeah.
it may be at fellowship for 10 more years. Who knows? Maybe Mary Jo and I will move to the mountains and I'll be a volunteer assistant at, you know, Young Harris or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
That's great.
That's awesome.
So we kind of ask everybody that's on the show about rule changes. What's something that you would like to see change as a rule in high school lacrosse, boys or girls, or what you
Well,
think?
the girls was rule that I would change because it's getting very dangerous is after they score a goal, they chuck their stick down,
Yeah.
especially at the college level. And I saw some girl almost get a ricochet back to her. I'm like, just drop your stick. I don't know when. I get the whole I'm celebrating, but it's getting out of hand,
Yeah.
especially at the college level. But on the boys' side, get rid of the eye black rule. It's the stupidest thing in the world,
It is.
especially with little kids. It's like really they want to emulate, whoever is
Right.
the next Rob Pennell or whatever. And it's like,
Right.
come on, just what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
it's just eye black. As long as you're not writing curse words on your face. I mean,
Right.
it just
We
to me,
we've talked about someone
Yeah.
before, and because some people at some point did some kind of stupid thing, why are we penalizing everybody for that when, take care of that how you need to take care of it. And but
yeah,
yeah, I get it all the time. I got my guys are like, coach, like, come on. I'm like, no, one line, that's the rule. Like, I'm gonna go by the rule because if we get a penalty because you guys are being yahoos about it, then it's gonna make me pretty upset. So, it's a rule. We got to follow the rule. You know, one thing about it as the also the laundromat of the team, I don't like getting eye black out of the uniform, but
yeah.
there's ways to take care of that.
Yeah.
I am a big
What
proponent
what
of, go ahead.
what rule change would you guys change?
Well, I'm a big proponent for a shot clock in high school.
Well, New
um
York State just started
yeah,
it.
I saw that. I made a comment about that.
Mm,
What number, like, one, I don't think it doesn't hurt any other teams that can't hold possession. Doesn't matter. You can't hold possession, shot clock or not. You're going to turn the ball over, so it's not
yep.
it's not going to do that. At least it gives you an opportunity to maybe get the ball back.
Hmm.
Um, and it changes like coaching a little bit. Like we get stuck into like forever, lacrosse was the same, right? And now you start to get changes. I remember when, I was at Lassiter and, you had the horn and you could, as long as it was, on the sides or whatever,
Sideline
yeah, you could sub guys on. So like, we had to adjust to that. We had to adjust to certain things. I think a shot clock is a no-brainer because it doesn't matter what level of lacrosse you're going to go play at the next level. They have it in college. So why are we not prepping the kids who want to go play for that? Now we can put the number at whatever you want to, but again, like I don't know. I hate the 10 count as well. I think that's something that's silly. With a shot clock, you'd get rid of that 10 count. Do we just say get 20 over, don't have to touch in? There's just, we're, I guess, growing the game in some sense or changing it at the college level. Let's change it at the high school level too and put everybody on the same level. And like I said, you're going to go play club. You're going to have a shot clock to have a shot clock in club lacrosse. So why are we not preparing people to do that?
No, I could not agree more. And, we all thank Coach Tierney for slowing down the game when he was at Princeton,
Yeah,
because it used to be a fast game. And when I played, there was only 3 poles on the field. There
right,
was no such thing as an LSM.
right, right.
And then that changed, as you said, Peter, evolved, and the horn on the sideline,
Yeah.
the box size, and this, that, and the other thing. Making the game faster is not a bad thing.
No, not
Because
at all. Not at all.
yeah,
I'm not. I'm also not a big fan. Well, I'd say this, but like, it's obviously lacrosse is going to be in the Olympics in 2028. I think that's a fantastic thing. There's obviously the people that are like, why are we changing the game, quote unquote, changing the game to get everybody else interested in the game? The game is the game, but the sixes is obviously, a lot faster of a game, a quicker pace, and,
yeah. Well, I
you know,
think it plays well on television for
yeah,
the non-lacrosse person, like us three.
right.
We would watch a 3-hour
No
lacrosse
matter
game.
what. Right,
Right.
The person that's watching swimming and diving and they're flicking
right.
during the Olympics, like, oh, I can
Correct.
watch this for 40 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And you're
watched a
moving on.
ton. I watched a ton of water polo during the Olympics. I thought it was like a really cool sport,
Yeah.
but it was only an hour or so,
Right.
or
Right.
team handball or
Yeah.
whatnot. So, I think it plays better on TV. Plus, the international teams don't have as many players,
Correct. Correct. Right.
so they would. I mean, they're not going to be able to compete in the Olympics against us or Canada. But
Sure.
but Japan is getting better.
Yeah.
So I think it's better for the game. I'm not a giant proponent of the sixes, other than it's kind
Right.
of cool to watch. And
Right.
some people during fall ball, they're doing sixes because kids are playing football or
Right.
they're cheerleading or,
Yeah. Yeah.
playing flag football now,
Right.
for the girls. So I wholeheartedly agree. We're working with New York State, with the shot clock thing
Yeah.
to see how it goes. And I think you're going to just see it explode.
Well, we have the technology because
Yeah.
you have to have a play clock in high school
Football.
in here. So
Yeah.
it's, in my a lot of the argument is,
Oh,
well,
we
you
can't
got to have
afford it.
another official. Well, I was just talking to a high school official this past Friday about, hey, if we could get a high school football official to just run the clock and just know the mechanics of the other officials with reset it. I mean, you don't have to know the game, just follow the mechanics of the
Yeah.
official. And there's no other, yeah, okay, it's an expense, but we don't have to necessarily train anybody else. We can get those football officials and they don't have to know anything about lacrosse. Watch that guy's hand signals. This is what it's going to be.
Yep.
Reset the clock.
Hmm.
So I think Glenn has one for girls lacrosse.
Well, there's a few, but
Yeah.
I mean, the main one is continuation after scoring a goal. It always kind of drives me nuts if player scores a goal and then it's called back for whatever reason, and then like you're kind of rewarding the defense for committing a foul. There's no guarantee the girl's going to score on the 8-meter shot. The goalie can make a save, miss the net. Defense makes a play and stops it. So it's almost like you're rewarding the defense for committing a foul. I'd like to see that changed,
Yeah.
but that's just me.
Yeah. I agree.
Where's your
Co-
daughter going to play, Glenn?
She's committed to play at East Carolina.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're super excited. We had some connections to East Carolina before she even found it, and it was one of those things like she went there for a camp and just fell in love with it. And then everywhere else we went, she just compared it back to East Carolina. So it's a good fit for her academically. It's a good fit for her athletically. Hopefully everything works out and, we stay healthy and all that. And I think she'll have a chance to be a important player for them immediately when she gets there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Coach Lou, I appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on and helping us out.
Absolutely.
We are all about growing the game, getting information out there about the game, people involved in the game. Obviously, not many people have to look very, very deep about your involvement and all the things that you've done for it. But we are grateful for you to come on here and share with us your knowledge. Talk about Gordon a little bit, and his foundation, and continuing to help people who are struggling, who maybe don't feel like they have a place or somebody to help them out. And I think that's a great thing that you guys are doing. And we just appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit of your Long Island with us, and the start of Georgia lacrosse, and we do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I was honored, and it was my pleasure. So anything you guys need, just let me know.
All right. Great. Thank you, Coach. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Enjoy your families the rest of the weekend.